Welcome everyone to the August board meeting for the Lake George Central School District. We have two more board members who are coming. One board member had some car trouble and called another board member, and she's swinging by to pick her up. So they're going to be here shortly. We are going to go ahead and get started just to roll along on time. And we do have a quorum, but Mary Ann and Donna will be here very soon. So we would like to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able, please stand and join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic that stands one nation, indivisible. So you know what, John, just so that Mary Ann and Donna don't miss this particular report. Oh, here they are. Never mind.
Okay.
I was trying to pick something. I'm like, what can we do in a different order? Welcome. You guys you've only missed the Pledge of Allegiance, and we are about to do the first agenda item of, no worries. Good teamwork. So we're going to have the report on the Committee on Special Education with Chris Mondella and John Luthringer.
Yes, thank you, Katie. Chris Mondella, our CSE chairperson, and I are going to present today on the Special Education Biennial Report. So one of the things that we are required as a district is a special education report. It's per the commissioner's regulations. It's a required element for every school district in New York State. And there's a bit of requirements to it. It needs to be updated every 2 years. And it's a good opportunity for us in August to take some time to share a little bit about our special education department, some data associated with that, the ins and outs of the program a little bit, and some of the requirements that we're required to have. So we're going to start off. Perfect. So our objectives today here that Chris and I will share with you is a little bit about the requirements per New York State educational law. We're going to explain the continuum of services, which was really what does special education services look like across the district from least restrictive environment to most restrictive environment. What does each program look like? We'll give you, Chris will go into some details on that. We will review our special education population data. So that's something that we're always looking at. We look at our data all the time, but it's really, what does it tell us about our programming? What trends do we see in the future? And then we're going to talk a little bit about some goals that we have. So as part of this plan, it is required to have goals for our district. Of course, it's always something that we're working towards, and then something that we can evaluate as we move forward. So our plan moving forward is every 2 years to do a presentation like this, update our plan as necessary, and then be able to present that to the Board of Education. So in the New York State regulations, so there are a variety of things that are required as part of this plan. So right here is just a very brief synopsis. In the plan that I shared with the Board of Education, there's much more details to it. But essentially, generally, we need to describe the nature and scope of special education programs and services that are available to our students and our preschool students residing in the district. We have to identify the number of students to be served along with their disability and location. Now, keep in mind, these are just in general terms. We're not going into anything that's personal identifiable information. This is just pure numbers. We have to look at the ways that the program overall is evaluated. And then we have to look at, and we have to include Board of Education policies and practices. One example here is that one of the policies that we have, as all districts do, is we have to ensure that we have appropriate space for programs. That includes in our district as well as at BOCES. So part of my job is to work with BOCES to ensure that we have adequate space for students that do attend the special education programs at BOCES. budget to support the plan, which we'll talk a little bit about tonight, and then the board has to adopt the plan. So we'll be looking to recommend the board to adopt our plan in September. I'll presenting on it today, and we've shared it, the full plan with the board already. So Chris is going to take some time here and talk a little bit about the continuum of services and really how we're meeting the needs of all of our students.
Yeah, so in talking with John over the last couple of weeks, one of the things that we really wanted to present tonight was our continuum of services. John and I talked about how the board was really interested in learning a little bit more about what our continuum looks like, what our programs look like, and what our experiences look like for our students in our special ed programs. So I'm going to take about 4 or 5 slides, and I'm going to go through what exactly is offered here at Lake George. Our related services. Related services assist students in accessing general education curriculum. There's a variety of related services that are offered statewide, but the ones that you're really going to see at Lake George are going to be the counseling services, speech and language, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. There's also audiology and special transportation. These are all things that can be offered to students, but primarily what you'll see here at Lake George are these ones that are listed here. Speech and language services, we employ 2 speech and language pathologists. That's Jessica Cross and Robin Larson, and they do a phenomenal job in our school that's district-wide. OT and PT, we contract out with a couple of providers, one being Yvonne Boyerman, and the other one is Kristen Starling Doty. They're here every single day for part of their day providing services to our students, and they do another phenomenal job. Counseling services can be provided by a variety of different people. Anybody in our school counseling offices can provide counseling services if necessary. Our school psychologists can provide counseling services if necessary. We just hired a new school psychologist, Jenna Smith. This year, the plan is for her not to provide any counseling services, but if necessary, she could. Primarily, you're going to see our school social workers providing these counseling services. That's Scott Smith and Tori Coddington, and they're providing this kind of these services on a regular basis. Related services are tailored to meet individual needs of students, and they're outlined in every student's IEP. So whatever is prescribed at those CSC meetings every year, that's what's provided through the district. Thanks, John. So one of the models that we provide here also is consultant teacher services. That's a supplemental support for students with disabilities. There's 2 different kinds of CT services. You're going to have a direct model and an indirect model. And the difference is in a direct model, the special education teacher is going to be in the classroom providing individualized instruction, supporting the general education teacher. Where in the indirect model, the special education teacher is going to collaborate and meet with that general education teacher on a regular basis. They're going to plan together. They're going to make sure that they're both on the same page as to what every student needs, making sure that those accommodations are being met, all the testing accommodations and the supports in that classroom are being met as well. The special education teacher is the expert on that student. Usually they are the case manager for the students that are in the general education classroom. So they're really making sure that the IEP is being implemented correctly and accurately. They're going to collaborate on a regular basis. That special ed teacher is going to be the professional development that general education teacher may need to make sure that that IEP is being followed correctly. Some of the things that you'll see in that CT service as well is progress monitoring. So every student with a document or an IEP is required to have goals on their document, and those goals need to be followed along throughout the year and monitored. So a special education teacher can use the consultant teacher system when they're in that classroom to be gathering data on what skills those students are learning and picking up on. And then every couple of months, they're required to go into the document and monitor and show the progress that student's made. They input data, and that data provides a graph so that when we get to the CSE meeting, their annual review, we have a good picture of what's been happening across the year. So we know if those students are making the progress that they need to. So being in the classroom during that time period can be really beneficial because they're constantly gathering data. One of the most important parts of this model, though, is the collaboration. Again, the special education teacher is the expert, and they are making sure that that document is being followed by meeting consistently with the general education teacher or being in the classroom and specifically providing instruction. The goal of consultant teacher services is to create an inclusive educational environment where students with disabilities can access the general education curriculum, participate fully in classroom activities, and achieve their full potential. By providing specialized support and fostering collaboration, consult teachers play a crucial role in the success of students with disabilities. And that's what we see across the board here at Lake George. This service is provided in Lake George K through 12. You'll see this in both buildings and by all of our special education teachers, depending on the population of each school year. Next slide, John. Resource room. So in the resource room, you're going to see specialized supplemental instruction generally provided by the case manager. It's really reteaching of the curriculum. So I have a special ed student that I'm the case manager for, and they just came out of their general education classroom, and I know that they're struggling with something specific. I'm going to attack that in my resource room. I'm going to provide specially individualized instruction to that student to make sure that they're grasping the concepts that they just saw in the general education classroom. Really an important part of our continuum. A lot of our students have this service, and our teachers do an amazing job of implementing this service. I spoke a little bit about progress monitoring. This is another opportunity for special education teachers to gather data and make sure that they are updating those goals and seeing the progress that's being made. Another opportunity in a resource room is for the teachers to really attack skills. Like if that student is really struggling with something specific, dividing fractions, that's the skill that we're going to work on so that when you get back to the general education classroom, you're not falling behind because you're missing one specific skill. They're advocates for our students in the resource room as well. Hey, what's your after school plan? Let's make sure that we set you up with a couple of teachers after school and you're staying after and getting the support that you need. Hey, I know that this teacher has a free period, sixth period. I know you have lunch. Maybe we can spend some time with that teacher to get some more support. Really being an advocate for the students in the resource room is something that we'll see. And the relationships that are developed there are super important. Resource room. Yep, next slide. ICT, or the integrated co-teach. This is a model that you're only going to see generally in the elementary school. We use this for this year. We'll have an ICT classroom 2nd grade through 6th grade. And that's just a model preference that I think the elementary school has had over the years, as opposed to the way that the schedule works in the high school, where a collaborated class doesn't always make as much sense. But in an ICT classroom, you're going to see disabled and non-disabled students in one classroom. The special education teacher and the general education teacher share responsibility for all students. So although there is a special education teacher and a general education teacher, that special ed teacher is not solely responsible for special education students. It's a collaborative effort, and both teachers are responsible for all of the students in the classroom. It's a diverse population. Curriculum is modified as needed. They are planning together. They are teaching together. They are managing classroom management together. It's a team effort. Examples that you might be familiar with are Jessica Padres and Jonathan Lewis, who have been doing ICT in 4th grade for several years now, and they do a phenomenal job. But there are those examples throughout. This year will be 2nd through 6th grade. Some of the models inside this model that you might see are team teaching, where both teachers are teaching the class the same, delivering instruction together. There's also parallel teaching. Teachers will split the class and teach the same content simultaneously to 2 different groups. Or station teaching, where the students will rotate around the classroom to different stations, where they're working on specific skills at one station, but also spending time with each of those teachers as well. And then alternative teaching, where one teacher provides instruction to the larger group, while the other works on a small group on a specific skill. They're continuously assessing the IEPs and the goals and making sure the students are on track to meet their goals and the accommodations are being provided. It's a very inclusive culture, and the elementary teachers down there do an amazing job. Special class. There we go. So the special class is specially designed instruction in a self-contained setting. Students with similar needs you're going to see students with similar needs in a special class. There are opportunities for students in a special class to spend time with peers and cohort outside of the special class classroom, but their instruction, their academic instruction is primarily going to happen in that classroom. Lake George does provide a special class down at the elementary school. That ratio is inaccurate. It should be 8-1-1, and that classroom is run by Morgan Burns. So that ratio means that there's the maximum of 8 students, 1 teacher, and 1 teacher's aide in the classroom. In a special class, you're going to see individualized instruction again, but that instruction and curriculum is not going to be the same as you'd see in a general ed classroom. So a 4th grade student that's in a special class is not going to be working on the same curriculum that a 4th grade student in a general ed class is working on. They might be working on life skills. They might be working on functional behavior, things that are on their level that are still challenging to them, but we're meeting them where they're at in the special class and hoping that they can progress. You need a highly qualified staff for a special classroom and a self-contained classroom. Before I came to Lake George, I spent a couple of years in a self-contained classroom, and I learned very quickly that it takes a special individual to remain in a special class in that classroom. Morgan does an incredible job. She values the relationships that she has in that class. It's a very special place, and if you ever get a chance to visit, I highly recommend that. She does an amazing job down there. You'll see behavioral interventions, intensive support, functional skills training. But one of the things that I think is the most important part of a special class is the structured environment. Classroom environment is highly structured with clear routines and expectations. This structure helps students feel secure and understand what is expected of them. If you walk into Morgan's class, every one of the students in there has their individual schedule on the board. They know exactly what is expected of them, and they know what exactly to expect throughout the course of the day. Their transitions are extremely important. If something catches them by surprise, it could ruin their whole day. So Morgan does an incredible job of making sure they know where they're going to be at all times. They know what time speech is during that day or what time they're going out for music or art. It's very important, and that structure really maintains the balance, and it helps us to make sure that they have a good day every day. I said that they're able to go outside the classroom for certain parts of the day. Of course, yeah. They are having lunch with their cohort. They're going to resource with their cohort. They're spending specials, art, music, PE. They're going with all their classmates to those to those events as well. They'll usually have a TA that'll accompany them to keep them safe and to make sure that the general ed teacher is supported as well. But again, she does an amazing job with the special class, and it's a big and important part of the elementary school. Out-of-district programs. So one of the goals of all special education departments and every special education teacher is to provide our students with their least restrictive environment. We want to make sure that we can put them in a situation where they are accessing general ed curriculum with the supports that we can provide without overwhelming them. But there are times when students need something that's a little more restrictive. So that's when we'll consider out-of-district programs. It's considered when the severity of the student's disability cannot be supported in district. A great example of this is BOCES provides a couple of different programs at both of their locations. It's called the TSP program. That stands for Therapeutic Support Program, and that's a ratio of 6-1-1. That's a program that Lake George does not have. It's designed for behavioral students that are having behavioral issues. And we just don't have that program because we don't have enough students in one grade level with that specific disability that it would make sense for us to create a classroom. So we look outside the district for programs like that. Our local BOCES has the Myers Center in Saratoga and the SAAC Center in Hudson Falls, and they provide that TSP program at several different levels, and schools from all over the area send their students there if they need. It does say other public schools. That's something that we haven't really done often, but it's something that we have considered. I know this year I explored a couple of different times of cross-contracting with other schools with other local high schools that have programs that Lake George doesn't provide. It didn't work out this specific year, but it's always an option we have. Maybe a 15-1-1, another program that Lake George doesn't have that possibly another school would. But primarily, if we're looking at a district, we're starting with the BOCES programs and then considering other options as well. Home and hospital instruction, designed for students with disabilities who are unable to attend school due to medical needs, and it's only recommended if it's considered to be the least restrictive environment. We have students that are on home instruction because they had surgery or they have severe medical needs. We're going to make sure that we're providing them with individualized instruction. We're going to have a flexible schedule. We're going to be in constant contact with the medical providers to make sure we know what is expected of the student, what we can expect from the student, and what the student's capable of. State ed requires that we provide 10 hours of education services to an elementary school student that's on home health instruction and 15 hours to a high school student. So we will be providing that, but the flexible scheduling means it might not be 2 hours every day for an elementary school student. It's where are they? How do they feel? Are they able to participate? That instruction could be provided by a teacher actually going to the hospital, although recently it's been more likely that we're providing that instruction virtually. And that does happen from time to time, but we are constantly looking to the future and when we can get that student back in the building on a regular basis. We're going to look at transition plans when that happens. We want to know as we get closer to that date when the student returns, what's it going to look like? Is that student going to be prepared to attend a full day, or do we have to modify their day where they're in the building for the morning and then they go home in the afternoon, or vice versa? But whatever we do decide, it's going to be thoughtful, and we're going to make sure that we're in constant contact with the medical professionals and the parents to make sure that makes sense on an individual basis. Oh, back for one second, I'm sorry. Another part of that is, I understand, and I think the department understands, that a student that's separated from their community, their school community for an extended period of time, and their friends could have developmental health issues and anxiety. That's something that we will provide too. If a student is home or hospitalized, we will still be providing related services where our counselors will be reaching out and spending time and making sure that we're making appointments with them as well. We want to, again, make sure that they're not having any sort of anxiety when they're returning, or at least we can support it the best that we can as they do return to the building. Thanks, John. So I spoke about least restrictive environments. The residential program is the most restrictive program that the district offers. In a residential program, the student is removed from their home and community and placed in a residential program designed to meet their specific needs. Some of the schools that we've worked with in the past, Mountain Lake Academy is up in Lake Placid. It's a beautiful campus. The Charlton School, LaSalle, Vanderheiden are all schools that are south of us. We've had students in those schools very recently as well. The programs have had a lot of success in the past couple of years. We've seen students that have spent 2 or 3 school years in one of these programs return for their senior year and then graduate on time. And I mean, that's ideal. That's awesome. That's exactly what these programs are designed for. Get the student the support they need, reintegrate them back into our school community, and see them graduate. We've also seen students finish their career at these schools and graduate from the programs that exist there. And that's just as good, right? As long as we're getting the student the support that they need and they're getting the help that they need. And we're still graduating. That's a success in my book. This is not a program or an option that we take lightly. It's not something that we consider. It's really our last option. It takes a long time for us to finally reach this option. We want to explore everything we possibly can before we get to residential programs. Is there another program that could support our student locally? Is there something we haven't thought of? What else can we be doing to help the student before we get here? But sometimes it does happen, but it also comes with extensive discussion with the families. It's usually a long discussion and over several weeks and months before we finally end up here. But we have found success, and some students do benefit from these programs. Reasons why a student might end up in a program like this: severe mental health issues, anxiety, drug addiction, alcohol, self-injurious behavior, dangerous behavior to others. All of these things could possibly result in us recommending a residential program. But again, it is a committee decision with the parents completely involved, and it's not something that we take lightly.
So the next few slides here are specific data. So we went back to 2018, 2019, just to give you a snapshot of where the district has been and where we are as of this year, as much as we have the data projected into this school year. So I'm just going to kind of quickly go through this for you so you can see. So CPSE is the Committee on Preschool Education. These are students that are under 5 years old. The CPSE, we do run the meetings, we facilitate the meetings, but the services are provided through the county. These are our numbers here. As you can see, mainly single digits. We have a pretty small CPSE population. The elementary school students these are students in this column that are classified and have an IEP, an individual education plan. Again, this is junior, senior high school here. And I think one of the things to notice here is the trend, as our enrollment goes down, our expected special education population also is going down. And that does make sense. So our total students that have existing IEPs currently right now is 77. Total, let me rephrase that here. So our total students that are part of IDEA, which the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is 86 here. We don't necessarily know our percentage yet. The one thing to pay attention to is there's a threshold that New York State likes to seed school districts at. That threshold is 14%. If you're above 14%, it's possible the state could come in and indicate that your percentage of students that are IEPs or through the CSE process is too high, and that they would want us to relook at our RTI process. So as Chris spoke to, there's a process that all districts are required to have in place that moves students through a very prescriptive process of interventions leading potentially to a classification. So our threshold right now, as of the 23-24 school year, is 13.5%. You can see we've been very consistent. And again, keep in mind also with our enrollment, one or two students can swing that percentage in either direction pretty quickly. So this graph here represents our first two columns here, or rows, are students that went through the initial eligibility. That means that students entered the school year not having an IEP and then ended up going through the RTI process, ended up going to recommendation to CSE, the Committee on Special Education, and then the Committee on Special Education determined whether they were eligible through a disability for an IEP, or they were not actually eligible. So this past year, we had 8 elementary students that went through that process and ended up with an IEP, 2 in the secondary, and then we actually had 2 students in elementary go through the process and deemed ineligible based on the data of that process and based on that CSE process. We had 4 students in the CPSE that were also ineligible. We had 3 students move into district at the secondary. Part of the process too is a great thing at times when we can declassify students. So those are students that have had an IEP at one point, and through the CSE process was determined that they no longer need the supports because they're doing so well. So that could be in a variety of different areas, but we had 3 students declassified this past year. And then we had students, of course, that moved out or graduated. So we had 7 students graduate. We had 2 students end up going to a GED path. We had 6 move out. And we had 9 in the elementary as well move out. So this is our data from this past year. And then finally here, so Chris spoke a little bit about our out-of-district placed students as well. So one of those things that it's a very careful decision-making process. There's a lot of different variables that are weighed through those committee meetings. Parents play a very key role in all of these decisions here. But you can see these are a list of the schools that we have relationships with, that we worked with. Obviously, our local BOCES, they have a tremendous amount of programming. They constantly are continuing to expand and work with school districts on the different needs of our students and programs they can offer. So we are projecting here, this is our projection here, that we would have 6 out-of-district placed students going into this year. You can see our numbers vary slightly, but all relatively single digits with the 22-23 school year with our highest number. One of the things that we have to account for, and one of the things that's most challenging for us to budget for, is special education, because it can vary so widely. We can have students that move in that might be medically fragile, or might already be part of a residential placement and their family moves here. So we're obligated through the CSE process to continue on with that. So this is something that we work very closely with the special education office here. Bonnie works closely with them. But it is sort of a little bit of a projection each year. There's no doubt about it. We do have to budget for students that perhaps move in. We always have students that move in with IEPs. Some years are less than others, but this is our budget moving into the 24-25 school year. So you can see it includes teacher salaries, teaching assistant salaries, who play a big role with our students with special needs. It includes transportation, conferences, tuition, perhaps if we have to tuition out students. So again, this is our budget here. So approximately $3.8 million is allocated for special education needs. This goes through a pretty thorough process every single year to try to get it as close as we can.
So in 2 years, I plan on being back here and reporting on how we've done. But what are we going to do as a department and as a district to make sure that we're heading in the right direction? And this slide kind of elaborates on that. So the program evaluative method, we're going to utilize the annual review process to establish that individual goals and objectives are met or are progressing, resulting in revised comprehensive IEPs. I've been a part of the special education department in Lake George for, I think, 6 years now, and I'll tell you that we write incredible IEPs. Our department does an amazing job. We have amazing teachers that know really what to put on a document and how to best support our students. So the bar is high, but that's something that we're going to constantly be looking at. Excuse me?
I said that's great.
Yeah. That's something that we're constantly looking at and making sure that those documents are written well, so that the next year's teacher has a really good idea of what the student in front of them is capable of and what supports they need. Ongoing review of students' performance on district standardized tests, end of the year evaluations, state assessments, Regents exams, and other curriculum-based assessments to measure adequate progress. Like every department in our district, the special education department is constantly looking at how we do on state assessments. It doesn't tell the whole story, and traditionally you would think special education students don't score as highly on state exams, but that's something that we're constantly looking at. We want to know how our students are doing. How can we better support them? Are there trends? Are there things that we are missing? So those exams, although they don't tell the whole story, they do tell a story, and it's important to kind of keep an eye on that. Analysis of information from diagnostic triennial reevaluations to gather data regarding cognitive, academic, and social emotional growth. So every student with an IEP is required to go through the reevaluation process every 3 years, the triennial or the reeval. And basically, they're going to be subject to a whole battery of tests. They're going to be academic tests, cognitive tests, social emotional tests, and that's going to give us a better snapshot of where that student is at this time period. A student that had their reeval in 4th grade is going to look a lot different when they have their next one in 7th grade. We update the documents every single year. We're constantly changing them at the annual review meetings, but this gives us a better idea of where their skills are at, besides just what we see in front of us every single day. These tests are important, and every student needs to go through that process. So our school psychologist will provide those tests this year again, Jenna Smith. Yearly comparison of state education department reports to identify emerging trends. Yeah. So what's going on in the state in special education? What's going on locally in special education? What's going on in our district in special education? Is it the same thing that's going on in the state? Are there trends? What are the best practices that are happening across the state? What are other schools doing to address some of these trends? Is that something that we should be looking at? So we're constantly keeping our eye on what's going on around us directly and statewide in the world of special education. Review of input, both formal and informal, from staff, administrators, parents, guardians, and students. Absolutely. Assessment of educational and post-secondary outcomes for 12th grade graduating students with disabilities. Yep. So we have a transition coordinator. Her name is Jackie Fisher. She's in the building once a week. And she's working on supporting our students with disabilities in that transition from starting in 11th grade and then into post-secondary. She'll interview them in 11th grade and contact the families. Hey, what are you into? What is your goals for after high school? Is it military? Is it college? What are you looking at? And she kind of walks them through the transition process and what life could be like after high school and what supports that student could have for them after high school, whether it's at the college level or wherever they're heading. We also work with another organization called Access VR. A woman by the name of Janae LeBrake is assigned to our school, and she's really able to access a lot of resources that a lot of families don't know that they are eligible for after graduation. So Janae works with our students and our families as well. Both of these women will attend our CSE meetings if we ask them to, and they really try to develop relationships with our families. So I'm always encouraging our families to get to know these ladies because they are a wealth of knowledge and a lot of resources. Review of state education reports, dropout and graduation data, suspensions, types of diplomas earned, number of referrals to special education. Yep. What are our students doing? Are they graduating on time? Are they earning the diplomas that they set out to earn? Are they being suspended on a regular basis? How often are our students being referred to special education? Is our RTI process working? These are all things that we're still looking at and always looking at. And this is going to be on the next slide for goals, but the percentage of students with disabilities earning high school diplomas. Traditionally, Lake George has been very successful in graduating our students with disabilities, and that's something we want to continue to do and constantly look at. So department goals, again, in 2 years when we're back having this meeting again, I'm going to be looking at these 3 goals, and we're going to see where we were, how we did, and if we were successful. Develop a multi-tiered system, TSS, that is used unilaterally throughout the district to support students before they are referred to special education. This one's really important to John, and we've had some intense discussions about MTSS. Megan has really been talking about MTSS. I think the first time I ever heard about it was from Megan. But essentially, it's kind of replaced what RTI is. And I know many of you are familiar with the RTI process, and response to intervention is that acronym. But it's basically trying to support students before they're recommended to special education. John mentioned that 14%, that's a number that the state looks at. We would never deny a student supports and accommodations in a document just because we wanted to stay under the 14%. But it is important to be making sure we're analyzing and exploring every option before we go straight to special ed. And MTSS does a nice job of kind of putting those supports in place before they come to the table. Number 2, attain a graduation rate of 100% for all students with disabilities district-wide. That's a lofty goal, but why not, right? We can't miss one student. That's what our goal is for the next 2 years. For every student that's eligible to graduate, we want to make sure everyone does. Every student with a disability graduates. That's our goal. I can't promise we're going to reach it, but I can promise we're going to try our best. And finally, through formal training and professional development, create a uniform method style of goal writing so that all documents use the same language district-wide. Again, I've been in the department for some time now, and again, we write incredible documents and we write really well-written goals. But the problem is that they're kind of written differently depending on what teacher and what building and what cohort. What I'd like to see is something that's a little bit more uniform so that the teacher that's getting that 6th grader that's becoming a 7th grader knows exactly what that goal really means because it's written in the same way. It might be assessing a different skill, but they're all written with the same language and the same structure. And I think that'll really help the transition from one grade to the other. Oh, and finally, a quote that's always kind of spoken to me: if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. And that to me is special education in a nutshell, right? We're always trying to even the playing field. And I think that kind of encapsulates that. We want to meet our students where they're at. And that's what we look to do with special education. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to the Board of Education. I know that was comprehensive. It was a little bit longer, but we're looking at this as this is the year of a reset. So we wanted to make sure that we were thorough in explaining as best as we can without actually being in a classroom, but the best we can of the programs we offer. So fairly comprehensive, and certainly if there's any questions, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's a
welcome.
great presentation. I just wanted to say, and thank you. I read the plan really closely and it was so, it's so satisfying to see everything so organized and in front of, and just, it's a perspective that we haven't had. And it just helps to put a structure in place. And so thank you so much for all the work that went into that. And also, as I was reading it, I kept thinking, oh, we have a policy for that. Oh, we have a policy for that. And I thought, I might suggest that and then the last page was an appendix of every policy with the live links in it. And I was
Thank you, Sarah
pretty
Barton.
psyched. Thank you. I wanted to ask a question. Reviewing this plan biannually, is that a legal requirement or a best practices? That's one question I have.
So in one of the things that we looked at is we looked at a lot of mentor plans. So the law says we have to have a plan. Best practice is what they say is biannual. So there isn't necessarily a requirement. Actually, some districts have a 3-year plan, but in the past, historically in this district, it's been 2 years, at least the past that I've come across. So we're hoping that a biannual report makes the most sense for us.
Okay, thanks. And just briefly, you said that the 612 special, or the 812 is a typo. It's supposed to be 811. That's in the plan as well,
It's in the plan as a 2 or a 1.
as a 2.
It's supposed to be a 1.
Yeah.
So it's
just-
Morgan with 1 TA, and I think at this point she has 6 students. The maximum she could have is 8.
And then I don't even know if I can word this question correctly or not, but the Committee on Special Ed, that process of do they do diagnostic assessments? Is that correct? The clinical team? Do children primarily come in with like a specialist has seen somebody and said, please have your clinical team, evaluate and treat, or do they come in with a diagnosis, or is it everything? Is that?
So the triennial will have a very wide variety of different tests that we're going to have to review. It's funny that you ask about outside providers, because just this year I did have one family who insisted on an outside provider, and it made the most sense. It really did. So that provider supplied us with a very extensive report that our team has analyzed, and we use it as a tool. It's not the be all end all of what we have to implement in our district, but it's another tool in our tool belt of when we're making a decision of what makes most sense in our opinion for that specific student. Did that answer your question?
It does. And then going in the other direction, does it happen also that a clinician will, identify something and refer externally to, for family to a specialist or further diagnostic?
Repeat the question. I'm not following.
Like if there's a medical diagnosis of some sort that has not been made, but does the clinical team ever in the school ever refer out for further workup, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so that.
So we have.
Or to our medical director. or
Absolutely.
that.
Yes. So we have access to, licensed behavioral therapists that would do additional rounds of testing. Perhaps if it was something that we as the CSE recommended to a family to say, hey, we're noticing this is what we're seeing on our assessments, the KTA and other assessments that our psychologist does. But we believe that this student should get some further intervention and perhaps a different diagnostic. And we have we have psychiatrists, Dr. Crossgrove, we have Dr. Kelly Brock. So there are others that we contract with that we can make recommendations to families,
Dr. Passon.
or Dr. Passon, or vice versa.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to wonder. Is
So a
there
parent could come to us
is
now.
there a flow both ways?
There is, and I think that's a conversation through the CSE committee that would happen, because there is usually some constraints around that. There can be, families could seek additional costs from the district to pay for some of that. So that is typically a conversation that would happen at CSE, but it can and does happen.
Thank you. Thanks again. That was great.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, Chris. I spent 28 years working directly with the CSE department, so I'm very familiar with everything you said. You made it seem so easy. It's very difficult working IEPs with these kids and, all the needs that they have. And the staff does a great job, I think. And it's just, I don't think an easy task, but you made it seem easy and you explained it very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. That was wonderful. And I also wanted to mention too, just that, I know that, a lot of times we don't realize what an effect special education teachers have on our students here. I think that, there's probably a variety of circumstances where you could think of the fact that some students would never even get to cross that graduation stage without the work that the special ed teachers put in, because they get to know those students so well. And they support them in so many aspects of their life. So thank you.
You're welcome. I think one of the greatest aspects of our special ed teachers are the relationships that they're able to form. They do an amazing job of that, and it goes a long way.
Thank you. And I agree. This is a very comprehensive presentation, and I feel like I have a much better understanding of our special education program. And I really appreciate the goals that you've put forth. And I really appreciate you using that 100% and not being afraid to really set the bar high. And the multi-tiered system, I'm thrilled about that. And I feel like that piece will help a graduation goal for all of our kids to be closer to 100%, because everybody's going to be, the kids who maybe are struggling but don't necessarily meet the threshold for 504, but there's something going on, so when kids are having that kind of individual attention, I think, the success is going to be even greater. So thank you for putting 100% out there.
I think the more information that we have, the more students that we're able to help. And I think that the MTSS system will do a great job of that, of telling us what exactly we're looking at and what exactly each student needs before they get to the table.
Yeah, thank you. Small school at its finest, right?
Last thing I wanted to mention about the goals too, because I love all three of those goals. But the one that wasn't mentioned, that it is great to actually pay attention to alignment and goal writing, so that not just so that there's like a common understanding, but I think it also like unifies people and purpose and people are part of a system and an operation on behalf of the student, and it's not just what happens when you're here and when, you know what I mean. There's a collective ownership in that, and I really appreciate that, because I don't think often that people tune into that detail.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. I just want to also congratulate Chris here on a job well done, his first year in the CSE role. It is to your point, Rosemarie, it is a very demanding job. 87 annual reviews, something like that. Lots of meetings with parents and lots of working with our faculty and staff and our administrators. So Chris has done an outstanding job. So congratulations to Chris for a great job this year. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the public hearing for the district-wide, right?
Yes.
Am I right? Okay, for the district-wide safety plan. I'll turn that over to you, John.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in July, the New York State requires all districts to have a district-wide safety plan. Our plan has been updated. It's been in existence. The requirement was in 2001. And the updates for this year are centered around trauma-informed drills, which I explained to the Board of Education. So it does have some language in there, some new requirements that our school has to follow. It doesn't include advanced notification to families for lockdowns only, not fire drills. And we'll be working on a process and have been to announce all of these changes. They're slight changes. So the plan is to address that. It's been on our website. We have not had any feedback or questions regarding that. So at this point, I can open a public the public hearing for any further comment or questions. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Any questions or comments from the board on this?
Yeah, I guess I have a question in that are the number of drills that is um, required by law, or is it more of a best practice?
We are required by law to do 12 total drills, 8 fire drills and 4 lockdowns drills. So yeah, it's a state law. That was instituted in the last several years. The plan itself was instituted after Columbine, the requirement for that. So, but the plans are there, that's commissioner's regulation.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is the public hearing for the code of conduct. And again, John,
Yeah, so just a
Excellent.
quick summary here. The Code of Conduct is an annual review. The district undertook a review process through our district health, safety, wellness, and nutrition committee. It was a collaborative process. There was a number of updates. I'm not going to go into all the details, but there was a number of updates in the plan. The plan has been also on the website for the last 2 months. And at this time, we can open the public hearing for any comments. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
does the board have any questions, comments on this item? Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is the elementary school update with our elementary principal, Mr. Jim Conway.
Right. Good evening, everybody. I wish that Chris was still here because 2 things listening to him talk. He has been a great advocate for our students. He's been a great advocate for the staff in the special education department. One thing that maybe was not reflected in that is that our children are moving from more restrictive to least restrictive environments. And that is a big, important factor that should be considered. I'm going to tell them that, like, toot your own horn a little bit and show some of that, because that's ultimately what we want. And students move on from those services to require less and less because they're being successful. But he's doing a great job. So I wanted to note that. As always, very busy at LGS. I do want to start and just give kudos to Bridget Crossman and Heather Usher for the reading programs that they are running this summer. It's a tremendous opportunity for our kids. They're doing books and beaches again, where students show up at the elementary school library. They have an opportunity to sign up books, and then they go on a field trip to sometimes a library, local library or bookstore, and then they hit a beach. And having some fun in the sun this summer has been an easy thing with the great weather we have had. But then there are other multiple things. She's got a library with different activities that people are signing out. Everything from lacrosse sticks to juggling to anything you could imagine that is just fun activities for parents to sign out. So a lot of good things going on. And like I said, Bridget and Heather Usher are running that program for us. At this meeting every summer, I do like to thank our youth commission for the great program that they offer our children. A tremendous amount of Lake George students participate in that in PEP and Youth Commission, and our kids benefit tremendously from that. So thank you to Kathy O'Brien and all of the staff involved there. K-6 Jumpstart program up and running this week. Opportunity to provide an academic boost for our students that are entering K through 6. For our entering kindergarten kids, their first opportunity to be in the elementary school. So thank you for continuing to support that program. Summer STEM camp begins on August 19th. We have over 50 students that are registered for that program, which is wonderful. Some curriculum updates. So we had our summer curriculum meeting yesterday, and I'd like to recognize the work that Ashley Gershon is doing along with Megan and myself, really driving curriculum in the building. Professional development sessions have happened over the summer, focused on K-6 math. So last year was our first year with Eureka Math Squared. Over this summer, an opportunity for grade level teams to meet, take a look at data, look at those units, look at our pacing calendars, take a look at what we need to adjust or tweak to ensure that we're covering things. And those early results on state tests, while one measure, have shown that our kids did very well. So we're really excited about that. With our K-6 teachers also, actually our K-2 teachers, even today, we had 8 8 staff members in today, Megan, Ashley, myself, and eight teachers getting trained in Hegarty, which is our phonemic awareness program that we'll be instituting K through 2. So a lot happening. Also, the preparation for our pre-K. John, Megan, Ashley, myself, Elena Levine. Elena has done a tremendous amount of work to ensure that we will be ready to go with those as of today. 15 students. We've had a little bit of movement in and out, but we're at 15 students today, and we're excited about that. Our educational cabinet meeting will be in 2 weeks. And as I share with you every year, we develop those goals, those 1-year targets, and they are connected not only to the district strategic plan and goals, but they are connected to our surveys that we provide for our families, our students, and our staff. What is it that they feel we're doing well, or maybe we need to do better, but then also looking at our data, all that we collect, social emotional data on our students, as well as academic data. I can assure you that one of the things that we will continue to work on is going to be our attendance, because as I've shared, we have action teams. So we set those goals and we have 6 action teams that work hard to reach those. I had an opportunity to present with Franklin Covey at the Rural Schools Association back in July. And part of what I shared about our leadership program was the success that we had on that action team, really, and some of the things that we did to address student attendance, and people were really excited. So they recruited me to do the same presentation, or very similar, at the Saney's conference in October. But I get to weave in a lot of conversation about student leadership into that as well, which is important. And it's one of the reasons why the kids took ownership in their attendance. But cabinet will focus again on attendance. We don't know what those other goals are yet, but I'll share those in September, or certainly by October. I know we've been going for quite some time, so I'm going to wrap things up, but a final plug, just thanking Kevin Parrott and Carl Denton and the entire crew in the elementary school. We've had a lot of movement in the building, a lot of work that's been done. They have done a tremendous job this summer getting things ready, and they are on time. Our grounds look amazing. The inside of the building is looking great as well. That's it. Questions about anything?
Jim, I'm thrilled that you spoke at the Rural Schools Association, and to think that more and more kids would have the opportunity to have the Leader in Me program that through Franklin Covey is heartwarming. So thank you. And obviously it was really successful, popular, because you're going to be sharing that with an even bigger crowd. So
Funny
you.
story. 15 minutes left on my presentation, the fire alarm went off. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. It's 80 degrees out in Lake Placid, beautiful day. Nobody's coming back. I didn't want to go back, but they did, and it was good, and it went really well.
Good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Great. Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the junior senior high school update with Mr. Frank Acosa, our principal.
Hi, good evening. So I was late because I was at the Downtown Revitalization Committee meeting, and tonight was an energetic meeting. It started a little after 4. The reason why it was energetic was because the projects were proposed this evening. So we got to review, I want to say approximately $15 million worth of projects. So it's the initial stages, and folks, true colors came out tonight. So to speak about Youth Commission, August is LGES's place to be, because that's when Jim is gearing up with STEM Camp and Jumpstart. Well, July is Lake George High School's place to be. We had over 200 youth in Youth Commission in our gymnasium, lower field, each and every day for the past 4.5 weeks. It ends on Friday with a half day. And we helped Youth Commission with hosting the Siegel Music Festival, Magician, the Puppet People, my favorite, the beach each and every day, and of course, the weekly field trips all over the North Country and beyond. So I agree with Jim's sentiment about Youth Commission. The town of Lake George puts on an incredible program. And since they have branched out to other communities, allowing other youth to join our Youth Commission, that's why it's over 200 strong. Jim, do you know the exact number this year? But it was definitely well over 200 students here each and every day. We did run a summer remediation program in the month of July. We had 13 students participating. Carol Bodette is the teacher for the summer remediation program, and she's at 100% success rate, and I think she's on track to keep it. It wraps up this week as well. Our summer athletics for our student athletes has been running for the month of July for strength training each morning at 6 and 7 a.m. in the upper cardio room and weight room. So they've been doing that. We have issued 73 work permits, also known as working papers, to the youth of Lake George, not just our school, but anyone looking for a work permit. Of course, we coordinated with the town and village with the devastation at Shepherd Park when our instruments that we loaned to Community Band and the Lake George Music Festival only destroyed in the fire. You probably saw on your way in a bunch of instruments. Those are from Warrensburg. So when our instruments were destroyed, Community Band still needed instruments. So we worked with Warrensburg to get their instruments, but the agreement was that it would be housed here at Lake George High School. So in the hallway, you can get a sense of all of the instruments that were destroyed in the fire. They're Warrensburg's instruments. So Community Band wrapped up their series of summer concerts last week. The Lake George Musical Festival begins this coming week. So they're going to borrow those instruments and then they will go back to Warrensburg. So it definitely does take a village to coordinate summer programming. Bonnie has been coordinating with the village, the insurance replacement of the instruments so that we can start September with our band having everything that they need. Luckily enough, it wasn't all of the instruments because Community Band brings their own instruments for the most part. But if you look in the hallway, you get a sense of what they were borrowing for quite a while. So we're on track to have things in place for the fall, fingers crossed. In 2 weeks, we will run our summer August Regents for about a dozen students. We have our student orientation for new students the last week of August, and our final touches to the schedule occurred. Now the teachers are seeing it, and very soon the students will be seeing it. And then final adjustments to those adjustments will occur. And I want to echo what Jim said, and I know what John would agree with, and Megan and Bonnie. Our buildings and grounds staff has done a tremendous job. You walk through a work zone because the offices and some classrooms at the high school are getting renovated in August. New carpeting, new ceiling, new lighting, so on and so forth. But if you're here one early morning, walk the campus of the elementary school and then walk the campus of the high school. And I say morning because there'll be no distractions. And you just get a sense of how much work the buildings and grounds staff has done to bring our facilities up to where they always should have been. It's just a beautiful campus at LGES and also here at the high school. And the staff has brought it back to where it used to be. So it's so impressive. And there isn't a day that goes by that John or Bonnie or myself or Jim or probably you have gotten comments from the community about how beautiful our campuses look. And that doesn't just happen. So we want to thank our B&G staff for that. That's my update.
Thank you. I was actually, when I was walking in today, I was thinking, I've never seen the entryway look as beautiful as it did tonight as I was coming up. The flowers are so fresh.
Aren't those
everything looks
flowers
so
incredible?
Clean. I did play a little sprinkler dodge getting up the walk, but
I do that on
looked-
purpose so that dogs don't spend their
okay.
evenings on our front lawn. But Katie, the flowers are actually coordinated with the village and town. I'm sure John has communicated that.
Well, that's actually another point
Yeah.
I wanted to bring, the number of partnerships that happen within our own community and greater community, what you were talking about with the youth commission, that is so wonderful. And I think people think schools are quiet, sleepy places all summer long. They are not. A lot's happening and there's a lot of coordination because that's when a lot of work happens, but we still have a lot of programming and a lot of things happening. So congratulations to everybody who's doing that juggling act. So, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. The next item on the agenda is our superintendent's report with Mr. John Luthringer, our superintendent.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. I just have a couple quick items here. So in the same vein that we've been talking about tonight with special education, we have a great announcement that in the fall, we are going to have and offer unified bocce. So bocce is a sport. It's an Italian sport, but it's a special education. It's a special education sanctioned sport. It is recognized by NISFA and the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, and along with the partnership that they have with Special Olympics. So we're really excited about it. I've been working closely with Mr. Kokoza and Athletic Director Manny in the spring because a couple districts locally started it in last fall. So it's brand new. It's a brand new offering just last year for school districts to be able to provide to their students. So we have a relationship with Special Olympics, and we have a youth advisory committee that's part of our varsity club. So Mr. Manny started engaging with them on that process. They created a goal to have this in place for the fall, and we are excited to be able to offer that to our students this fall. So we've been working, we've ordered the equipment. We're going to be getting that interest out there. So not only will our special education students now have a new opportunity in the fall, but now we have a consistent pathway of sports that students can participate in. So in the fall, unified bocce, our bowling is completely integrated, and many of our students of different disabilities participate in bowling and other sports. But basically bocce, bowling, and then we have unified basketball in the spring. So one of my goals was our students should have an opportunity all year round to play sports. So we're excited. So we will be inviting you to a bocce tournament
I can't wait.
in the fall. So we'll see. We'll learn more about how that goes. Part of this also allows us to pursue the accreditation process for becoming a unified champion school district. Which is it's an accreditation process that you have to meet certain criteria. So we're going to be looking at that this year as a goal now that we have a second sanctioned unified sport. So we're very, very excited about that. As I mentioned to the board as well, this is another great opportunity for our students. As you all know, we offer a school-based mental health clinic through BHSN. It's been highly successful. We've had it for the last 2 years. So successful in supporting our students with mental health needs and other needs that we've developed a pretty significant wait list this year in particular. We have currently we have 2 full days of a licensed clinician who is in district. They meet with families, they meet with students. They meet with students in both of our buildings, and we have exceeded our threshold to a point where we have a significant number of students on wait lists. So we've been working collaboratively with BHSN, and this just about a month ago, we had a collaborative meeting and really advocated that we need a 3rd day, and they agreed. So we will be having a new clinician, consistent though, for 3 days starting in September. So actually starting in late August, there'll be a transition date. So we're very excited about that as well, where we can offer more services to more kids. And then I couldn't have said it any better than Mr. Conway, Mr. Kokoza said about the summer work being done. It is just phenomenal. I was going through this list that Mr. Parrott sent us. It's an exhaustive list of things that have been accomplished, and it's just really impressive. So I don't need to go into any more detail other than what they have said, but it is a true testament to the leadership that Kevin provides to his staff in our district. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention that just a kind of a follow-up about our transportation routes process that we've been working on. Bonnie here and myself and Andy Raymond Transportation Department have been really working on this for the last year, really. And it all started with adding a 3rd run to our late buses, which we felt after getting feedback from some families was a goal that we wanted to achieve, which we did, but it was temporary. So we said, let's take this time and really dig into our routes and look at how can we create the more efficient routes? How can we create, the goals that we developed where we want to minimize transportation time for students? If we can have students on buses for less duration of time, that's a goal that we'd like to reach. We wanted to continue to offer our late bus, including the 3rd day. So that was a goal that we set. We want to be able to continue to accommodate all the athletic transportation demands, which are significant. We have to get our buses back at a certain time each day so our athletic trips can go out. And then obviously enhancing our operational efficiency. So we did a pretty thorough study. We've rerouted a lot of our routes. There is some impact to our neighborhoods in particular with creating more centralized stops. But we set out a goal also to minimize the walking distance. And really, we had a threshold that was already in existence for many years, right around 0.3 miles. And that was the threshold that we stuck with. There are some instances in our district that might be more than that are due to safety concerns. But overall, the neighborhoods are very, very reasonable. We sent out the maps to all families on Monday. Our feedback has been positive. We have one family we're working with right now. So far, so good. We're going to continue to communicate with them. But again, we're very clear about our goals kind of all the way through this. So we're hopeful that our parents understand that our goal is to really minimize the wait time and seat time for our students. And if we can do that through collective pickup points, we feel really good about that. So that's what I wanted to share tonight. Is there any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you you've done a lot of work with that transportation, and thank you, Bonnie, for all that work and for the high percentage of survey respondents it was impressive. So thank you. Thank you for your work on that. The next item on the agenda is the Audit and Finance Committee report. And I forgot to say at the beginning of the meeting, Mario Fasulo couldn't be here tonight due to a work conflict. And he is the chair of that committee and normally does a report. But Rosemary Earl is a committee member and has graciously agreed to give us this report tonight. Thank you, Rosemary.
I'd be glad to. So we met on the 24th of July. We reviewed the Treasury report for May. The June, July, and August and September will be reviewed after the end of the year balances are audited. We received tuition in May in the amount of $26,000 for foster children who attended last year. The proceeds from the sale of the tractor, that was a district surplus due to the cost of repairs exceeded its value. So we were happy to get $10,200. Nothing really on the claim auditor's report to report. We reviewed our committee schedule for next year. Mrs. Hart or Bonnie provided an update for capital project funding status. The multi-year heating, ventilation, or HVAC project is in its final stages and was funded through 2 federal grants, 2 capital outlay projects, and general fund allocations. The deadline for expenses to be encumbered through ESSER is September 2024. The total amount of ESSER grant was $1,177,516, of which was 20% was to be used for addressing learning loss and remediation due to the pandemic. The grant encompasses 3-year spending timeframe. The district was fully spent. The district has fully spent, encumbered all these funds. The breakdown is as follows, and she's listed it all there for you to read. The programs that were funded was with available grant money included Jumpstart, summer programs, Sunrise Scholars, high dosage tutoring, and Tier 2 intervention. Thank you. Sorry, salary, tongue-tied. The district has collaborated, examined data, and available funding to determine which programs can be funded locally with general funds and which programs are no longer needed. Bonnie also reported about the bonded anticipation note sale that occurred on June 27th. Glens Falls was the lowest bidder on notes in the amount of $548,000 at a 4% interest rate. These notes were issued annually to fund the district's bus purchases. Interest rates have remained steady the past year, but overall higher due to increases in federal funds rate, which is considered a benchmark for all interest rates. The purchasing policy and procedures were reviewed and will be distributed to everyone in the district that generates purchase orders. District discussion ensued regarding moving the category equipment to the guidelines in the public work projects when competitive bidding is not required by law. We talked about that. The committee also discussed the need for the budget transfer, a budget transfer that will need board approval at the August board meeting, which is right now. The transfer is to transfer 3,067,000 from the capital reserve to the capital fund for the purpose of expenditures of the construction of the new transportation facility. The capital fund earns the same interest as the funds in the capital reserve. We're going to vote on that. And that was the meeting. Any questions?
I just wasn't clear, when you were talking about the purchasing policy and procedures being reviewed, and then the discussion following regarding moving the category equipment to the guidelines
Mhm.
as the, I don't know, can you explain what that means? Or I don't know, Bonnie, if that's. Yeah.
Go ahead. Bonnie.
Several years ago, the equipment threshold went from 1,000 to 5,000. The regulations didn't reflect that.
Okay.
The word equipment still stayed in the old category, and we just moved it to the next category of the 5,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is the Policy Committee report, and Mary Ann McKenzie, the chair of that committee, will get that report.
This will be very brief. There are 5 policies moving forward to second read this evening. We discussed each of them at the July regular board meeting, and they are transportation of students, testing misconduct and mandatory reporting requirements, conference travel expense reimbursement, certified personnel, and Title I and parent and family engagement. And no additional policies were reviewed or ready to move forward to first read tonight, but we do have a group of policies that we'll start looking at, I think, starting next week sometime. Yep. So that's my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Mary Ann. The next item on the agenda is the 2024-25 board goals discussion. So our annual board goals. And earlier today, I sent everybody an email with a document. Mary Ann and I had a chance to brainstorm some ideas just to get us started with our goals discussion. And tonight, as we're talking about the goals, we will take notes and create a draft of the goals that we talk about tonight, and get those prepped for review and revision with hopes that we'll be able to adopt those in September. So let me find that. So did anybody have any thoughts? I mean, the topics that we had written about, did everybody get those? Okay. I'll just read them off just so we all have kind of the same things, in our minds as we're going, and then you guys can, talk to us about, we'll talk about what ideas you guys have been thinking about for goals. So increase effectiveness of the onboarding process for new board members by maximizing use of onboarding tools and including a feedback mechanism for ongoing improvement. The second one that we brainstormed was work collaboratively with the superintendent to establish best practice standards for board and district engagement in order to meaningfully fulfill cyclical board responsibilities regarding core district items such as attendance, district code of conduct, district safety plan, and the collaborative process / shared decision-making plan. And then the last thing was work collaboratively with the superintendent to define / clarify board member purpose, roles, and responsibilities when serving on district level committees. So those are just some ideas that came about to get our juices flowing. Anybody have any?
I have a question.
Sure.
So Okay. All right, so the second goal draft idea, establishing best practice standards for our cyclical responsibilities. So what am I asking? What does it mean? Like what type of you know what I mean? What are we thinking about there with best practice standards? Because I'm thinking, okay, so we have these cyclical things that we know are cyclical. So,
We do every year.
yeah, like what are we looking at with that? You know what I mean? I'm not sure.
See you
It's-
leaning
it's-
in, Mary Ann here.
Well, it's a good question because I get all fuzzy in my head. No, but you know, for example, say the code of conduct, which it requires annual review.
Right.
Board adoption. And so there's an oversight piece in that. And we have a district level committee that addresses this annual review, and then it comes to the board. But where is the board? And I mean, there happens to be a board member on that committee right now, whether or not that would be a best practice. So it would be like trying to determine, you know, do we want to, is a board person going to sit on that committee?
Gotcha.
Or is there a different way for full board engagement
Gotcha.
toward that responsibility so that it's not one, you know, so it's just like what model makes the most sense in terms of the board, you know, doing a good job and having it work in a healthy manner for everybody, right? So that it's done well
Gotcha.
and efficiently. I don't know.
No,
You
I
know,
think- Yeah.
We've been talking so much about governance and having all the systems and processes in place to be doing our role in governance. And so I think that's.
Yeah, and like another example is the shared decision-making plan, the district shared collaborative processes and shared decision-making plan, which has every 2 years that has to be reviewed. And, you know, John just sort of said, so what, you know, what's, you know, what would that look like? And we have to kind of determine what that can look like. And so it seemed like you know, we've got all of these beautiful documents and things happening in the district. But then there's this sort of, how is the board, how are we exercising our oversight responsibly with the district? And that was sort of, it kind of comes up for several of these items, and we just kind of, it just seemed like an area that was so fuzzy, it deserved a goal.
No, that's.
Goal status.
So I have a
Thank you.
question about that. Is someone on that committee right now? And
Which
like the code of conduct is one of us?
I am.
Oh,
I
you
mean, I
are?
was.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not.
See?
So maybe that person could report to us. I don't
There's-
know if we want to have board direct involvement in making some of those, just, I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Well, I think that's, I think that was some of the process was that we have developed a number of processes internally that have worked for the last couple of years. But I think even just mentioning, some of the plans are quite lengthy and
Yeah.
potentially challenging to understand. So I think that could be an element of this too, is the timeline that a plan might go to the board for review. For example, the last 2 years, our Title I engagement policy has been reviewed at the building levels through their shared decision-making teams, which we have felt at a district level is a good practice because it includes parents, it includes teachers and staff members, and those are the ones that are required. So some of the plans have elements that are required of certain stakeholders, some don't. Some are at the district discretion. But to the point, they all require board approval at some point. So I think trying to get on a framework for what that looks like, I think is the intent of that goal. And maybe it's as simple as coming together in a document and outlining kind of a timeline or expectation for the district. So I think it would help all of us so things don't sneak up on us too sometimes. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think even in a case where there is a board member representation on a larger committee like that, if it was deemed that was the best way to go, there still should be a mechanism for that board member
To report.
have, right, to bring the rest of the group into that conversation. And so those are just things We just
Mhm.
need to,
Mhm.
we should, try to,
Yes, definitely.
And that, I mean, I think that's a piece of that third one, the work collaboratively with the superintendent to define, clarify board member purpose, roles, responsibilities. So, that's separated out because I mean, it is sort of its own thing, but it does overlap with that second one that we were just talking about. Thank you. Excuse me. How about that, the first one, the
We've had that
onboarding, yeah.
goal for a while. haven't
Well,
we?
and we have, it's like a slightly tweaked a little bit, that the onboarding document that, a few years ago
Mhm.
was the beginning of it. It was in its infancy. It's, a little bit past toddler. Now it's a preschooler, so it's perfect. We have our preschool program starting. It's a 3-year-old now. And, so Jeff's.
Pretty sure you just called me a toddler.
Yeah. No, you're a preschool, right? You're in our preschool program.
All right.
Mario and I were the top.
So, yes, so it's something that,
We should keep.
keep
It's the next step,
evolving,
yeah.
keep evolving, trying to,
Definitely.
and Jeff will be an integral part in giving the feedback, and Mary Ann has agreed to be the main mentor. We're all in that mentorship role. And so, yeah. In terms of, our thinking about our board self-evaluation, some of these things, popped into our heads for this, but are there other things that have been brewing in your minds other than these things for?
No, although I do
goes.
like the idea of some type of a feedback mechanism. In the future for.
Mhm.
new
What it-
members in terms
What is
of-
it, Janine? I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Oh, I like the idea of a formal feedback mechanism for the onboarding process in terms
Oh.
of new board members.
Wouldn't that be in the, or we could make it a part of the board self-evaluation
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
document that we do, so there could be specific feedback about the onboarding
Mhm.
thing.
That's a good idea.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe we can talk about having more student involvement in, not directly on our board. I mean, I know that's been approved by, or maybe discussed at the state level, but
Oh, right.
more student presentation or hearing more from students.
Isn't that a new state
Um,
requirement though, to have a student, or it's about to be, right, to have a student member?
It was approved by the legislator. It's still at the desk of the governor,
Yeah,
but it's anticipated it will be approved.
but I don't mean directly that, but even having more student involvement in our board meetings.
So exploring
Somehow.
ways to have more
Yeah.
student involvement.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I would like that.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay. I won't take too much time. I'm just jotting notes so I don't forget. Okay. Anybody else? And I know when we had our goals workshop, was that last year? A year ago? I mean, I think he said 3 to 4 goals, so we probably wouldn't want to go more than that. If we had something else that we were really burning to do, we might want to, shift it. I mean, obviously, there's no rules. We could have 5 if we want to, but that was sort of his guidance to have that.
Mhm.
So,
Maybe we can expand on the student involvement and just try and figure out a way to better disseminate information to the community, the school community and the larger community. The board in the school district does a great job, in my opinion, with transparency. I guess the problem is you have to know where to look and when to look.
mhm.
The Post-Star isn't doing meeting capsules anymore. That's probably been 15, 20 years now. But like the information isn't always necessarily getting out to the school community.
You mean outside of parents? The
Even to
greater-
parents.
Okay.
With the, the fact that there was no one here for Meet the Candidate Night, those
Mhm.
types of things. And you talk to some people, they didn't even know what was going on. It's really just, without a robust local newspaper anymore, a lot of the information that used to go out and be seen just isn't being seen anymore. And I don't know what the fix is, but it's just something that I think we should try and
Okay.
get more information to the
Yeah.
community.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. I typed it in with the student involvement, and it could be like even a community, including students. Yeah, so we'll look at that. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Well, we will take what we've talked about tonight and, put it into some language and get it out for your eyeballs to look at and review and make revisions as needed. And if folks are feeling good about it, we can, finish our discussion in September and then adopt those if everybody feels good about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our first public comment. Do we have any public comment? If there's anybody who is online with us tonight and you have any questions or things you want to share, if you email boe@lkgeorge.org, the board and superintendent will get your questions and comments, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So the next item on the agenda is school business consent agenda. And I'll turn that over to John.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the school business consent agenda items A through Q. In brief summary, items A is organizational regular minutes of the Board of Education. Item B, recommendations from the Committee on Special Education. Item C and D are treasurers and claims reports that Rosemarie spoke about tonight. Item E is a motion to approve Randy's Run Murphy's Mile as the fundraiser to be held on May 17th, 2025. Item F is a motion to establish the cafeteria rates for the 24-25 school year. Item G is a motion to adopt the policy statement and attachments for participation in the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program. Item H is a motion to set the tax warrant for the the school tax warrant for 24-25 school year. Item I is a motion regarding the policies to move forward to second read. Item J is a motion to approve the 24-25 district-wide safety plan. Item K is a motion to approve the code of conduct plan. Item L is in regards to Article 7 proceedings, tax certiorari settlements. Item M is another resolution in regards to an Article 7 tax proceedings that has been settled. And item N is a resolution in regards to the transfer of capital funds from the capital reserve to the capital funds that was spoken about in the audit and finance. Item O is a motion to amend the 24-25 school calendar. Item P is the 24-25 student transportation cooperative agreement with local North Country school districts. And item Q is a motion to declare the items on the surplus list as surplus property of no value to the school district. That is it.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Do you have any questions? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the action to attend the 2024 NYSBA Convention and appointment of delegates and alternate delegate.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approve the Board of Education's attendance at the annual NYSBA convention from October 19th through October 22nd, 2024. The delegate will be Mario Fasulo and Marianne McKenzie will be the alternate.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Questions, discussion? I'd say thank you to Mario for volunteering to be the delegate, and thank you, Mary Ann, for being the alternate. And it's a big commitment to do that, as Rosemary and Mary Ann have done it for us before and really invested a lot of time. So thank you for doing that. And thank you to the folks who were able to go to the conference this year. We learn a lot, and we'll be able to bring back some new knowledge and information to the district. So anybody else? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the faculty staff resignation consent agenda.
As recommended by the superintendent, be resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the faculty staff resignation consent agenda items A through B. Item A is a motion to accept the resignation of Lou Buck from the position of bus driver for the purposes of retirement effective July 1st. And item B is a motion to accept the resignation of Elizabeth Lisa Mastra Domenico, who submitted her resignation.
Um,
Second.
Questions, discussion? I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for.
Yeah, thank you, especially Lou, who's driven our buses for how many years?
14 years.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for the service to the district. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the faculty staff appointments consent agenda.
As recommended by the superintendent, be resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the faculty staff consent appointments items A through D. In summary, item A is a motion to amend the curriculum list and extracurricular co-curricular list. Item B is amend the 24-25 coaches and volunteer coaches list. Item C and D pertain to substitute lists of employees and salary rates.
Second.
Any questions? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is Board of Education comments and discussion. Does anybody have any?
Yeah, I had a quick comment. I was just to go back to our goal conversation around the onboarding process. I just wanted to mention that Jeff and I had the chance to meet right back in July on the 16th, just to have just a first kind of conversation and just kind of outline broadly, right, sort of the arms of board member service. And one of the things that I mentioned that time that kind of pertains to that first goal, and even though we've worked on it in the past, is that I really think that tool is our ticket to hanging on to like the good systems and things that have been developed and using them in the future, and kind of establishing, like wearing a path through it with that tool, so that we gain like familiarity and good user ability with it. So anyway, Jeff and I had a good meeting, I thought. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and we'll plan to get together after, we've been through a couple board meeting cycles, and we talked a lot about committee structure too, charges and scope and that process. And so once you've had the chance to experience some of those things, then we'll reconnect and keep going.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other items? Okay. So the next item on the agenda is our second public comment period. Don't think we have any folks here for that. So the last item on the agenda is the adjournment. Do I have let me read the, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Lake George Central School District hereby adjourns the meeting of August 6, 2024.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
I know.